Alrighty, let's talk about extroverted intuition. This is a cognitive stack to continue our cognitive stack series. Your brain technically does 8 things in this personality way of looking at life, Myers-Briggs and cognitive stacks. Carl Jung's studies several hundred years ago. The point is it's been around for a very long time. It's taught in colleges. It's not based on your birthday. It's based upon what you can see, how you act, and how you've chosen to display yourself and utilize your brain to this is who you are, right? So along those lines. Extroverted intuition is the extroverted version of this inner gut feeling. Basically, it is the dot connector for, this makes sense, this makes sense. It's like the aha thing. And for each personality type to use that function, it shows up very differently, even if they have it in the same slot. There are 8 slots because there's 16 personality types. 2 at a time share it, but because of their other functions, it shows up very differently for each. So even if you are the same type, like say you know an ENFP and you are an ENFP, you also have subtypes to consider. So how you use those extroverted intuition, ways of living, you're going to display things differently. That's where you got to look at other things like Enneagram for your driving force and blah, blah, blah. So generally speaking, these are stereotypes, how people use extroverted intuition. Here we go. Remember, extroverted intuition is kind of that crazy thing. This is the crazy function of the brain because it is considering like all these different things, how things like make sense. Now let's start off with the ultimate crazy, and I mean ultimate crazy. ENTP. Yeah, you know who you are. Like the one who is most likely to go crazy, bonkers, is the ENTPs. They also share the dominant NE function with ENFPs. So they're the warmer version of the ENTP, which is what I'm about to explain to you. ENTPs are the ones who are so pie in the sky with their ideas. They don't even care if you don't even care. Like they will talk about the pyramids and robots are birds, birds are robots. Ghosts are, they make you kind of get like conspiracy theories are real, okay? ENTPs are the ones who say those things, and they freaking love it. It can be very entertaining and very in your face. It can be a lot. If there's an ENTP in the room, it's the most obvious personality type to see. They don't really have a volume function. They don't really have a bubble. They'll be right up in your face, and that's okay. They have their place in this world. So don't just think that they're local because they're actually geniuses. That's where the ENTPs can be very fun. When you actually see them that way, the things that they say start to make sense. And then when you look at the ENFP, the warmer version of that, they have a lot of pros and a lot of negative. Both of these have a lot of pros and cons, right? Every personality has pros and cons. But the ENTP's pro, obviously, is that they're geniuses, they're just misunderstood. And the opposite is, they're crazy. The second one is ENFPs are seen as very bubbly and fun. They're the life of the party. ENFPs have a very dark nature, which is fascinating because they're actually the shadow of the INFJ, who is, there's a lot of INFJs on this channel, but they're very curious about the ENFP shadow. So here we go. The dominant function, NE for ENFP, can come across as an option seeker. This is the options function, so they're looking for options in any way to express how they feel, because FI is their parental function. So they feel that they should consider these options, and that's very interesting. Then you combine that with the TE child, which we'll get to in the TE series, it can make them very hedonistic. So the ENFPs, likewise, the ESFP has that function. ENFPs like pleasure a lot. And ENFPs can either be super jacked because they love the pleasure of the gym so much, or very not healthy. They don't really need to care about this physical plane of world because, the introverted inside's way more important. How you feel, how they feel, feeling itself and validating people's feelings to a point, right? Because they have that selfish function and considering all options on how they can use their feelings to either teach you something or feel something, but they want to feel understood. They want so badly to be connected that it's a weird feeling because they also become ambivert. ENFPs who are in the basement and seeking for pleasure all the time, they are known for that stereotype. They're also known stereotypically for the negative side. Talking about that stuff now, they are the ones who are most likely the beggars on the side of the road. And I've had an ENFP tell me, I said, why do you ask for money from anybody? Like, just tell me, bro. Like, I'm trying to understand you. And he said, look, if there's no clear and present danger, and another one actually told me this too. She said, there's 2 of them that told me this. If there's no clear and present danger, there's no harm in asking. Because if you say no, next, right? The ENFPs and ESTPs make the best salespeople. Because the word no just means not yet. And they're very, very good at that. very good at getting what they want. They're also known as the campaigners. Okay, moving on. Don't forget, I've talked about pros and cons for both. This is through the ESFP filter that I am, because ESFPs and ENFPs do rub each other quite a bit when it comes to like conversations. ESFPs just want to have that pleasure of the conversation get out, and ENFPs love to really delve deep into the feeling side of what everything means, and so therefore they're a little more contemplative versus the boisterous ENTPs. I hope that can explain where NE falls into those top two users. So that's the chunk of the video. Let's move on to the secondary users, the parental users of extroverted intuition. These people consider options and dot connecting and ideas as a parental function. Like they feel like they should. That's a necessary thing to do before we take action. So INTPs and INFPs have that. That's why a lot of them are authors. I just see a lot of them being authors. And even someone like me who does voiceovers for authors, and I like to do that because I'm an actor, I'm an ESFP. I get to see how they think, and I read their things, and I express how they feel on the outside. So I see and I experience this inner dot connecting idea, and their universes that they make are phenomenal because it's really cool what they can create. So INTPs are more on the logical side of what they make, what they say, makes sense, and they're very reserved about it, and here's what it is, and they're easily offended because they're FE aspirational. They actually do care deep down. They're warm, even though they're a thinker type, versus the INFP, who is warm for themselves. A lot of INFPs, as I mentioned, have this inner twist from seeing it and being told this. That's a whole different video. INFPs are a whole different world. But I digress. But you can see how they're considering options. They just don't have to listen to you. Neither of these two types, especially the INFP, who is always seemingly flipping you off in their pocket, because their feelings, FI dominant, are what matter the most. And they are different than the ENFP, believe it or not, even though ENFPs are considered Extraverted Ne a lot of the time, especially the unhealthy ones. Now moving on to NE child users. They use it in the third slot. This is what brings them pleasure on a childish 10-year-old level. They basically consider options, but they have the ways in which they're doing things, and we should probably kind of get back to it. These are the ESFJs and the ESTJs. NE, extroverted intuition, is a ideas thought that is kind of nice, but it kind of brings them pleasure to consider options on how to do something. ESTJs can use that for their contracts, for example. What if they did this? I'm going to put that in the contract. ESFJs are usually using that for their tribe, or people they're using consulting with or guiding them. Well, they can help you. This is somebody who can be of help to you. So that's using the 1/3 loop. You've probably heard that, where somebody gets kind of stuck in a rut using their 1 and 3. But I digress. ESFJs and ESTJs typically use it as a leadership thing. Now, NE aspirational inferior people. These are people who get pleasure the highest, but can't use it very often. It kind of intimidates them. So those are people who are very, very routine and very structured. As you can imagine, they are J types. So the ISTJ and the ISFJ. Stereotypically, they're very routine, very dutiful. They have the ability to help other people in their own ways. STJs are like, this is the rule, we're going to stick to it. So obviously you can see how NE is not something that they would consider. ISFJs consider that more on the humor side. I know a lot of ISFJs who just love chaos. And so that's where the feeling the warm side of that comes in, because they know all the memes. ISFJs can organize in their brain all the funnies. They can handle chaos like nobody's business. Stereotypically, they work in medical, dental. Something crazy happened that day and they handle it beautifully. ISFJs handle chaos the best out of every personality type you'll ever see. They're emotional tanks, make great therapists, and so you can kind of see how you could throw anything at them and they get pleasure out of that. But they can only handle it so much, and eventually they'll shut down, which is where the NI demon comes in. So that's a whole different thing. But now you can see how there's opposites. That's the NI versus NE. Okay, we're moving on. In fact, that's probably really good for the NE series for the top 4 users. These are the ones. These 4 get pleasure out of extroverted intuition, let's put it that way. And that isn't to say that the shadow users can't, but it's very different. So those are people who actually display NE in their everyday life and how they kind of show extroverted intuition. So mathematically, 16 personality types, 8 cognitive functions. The top 4 already shared with 2 at a time. Let's make a video for the shadow users of extroverted intuition. These are the... You'll want to stay tuned for that. Hope that's helped. America Osmond. Love you. Bye.